Today we're going to be creating nighttime pumpkins, and I'm going to be showing you how to mix our primary colors and adding in highlights. Then we're going to use our cutting skills to create a composition. So the first thing we're going to do today is work on drawing a pumpkin. So we're going to look at pumpkin examples on our table, and we're going to use a black crayon in order to draw it. So let's take a look at these pumpkins. What is it that you see? Do you see the stems? Do you see the lines? All right, so the first thing that we'll be doing when we do our pumpkins today is we're going to draw an oval. We're going to add the belly lines, a stem, and then leaves on our paper. And then I'm going to show us how we're going to paint these colors. So we've learned all about our primary colors, red, yellow, and blue, and now we're going to mix them and make orange and green. Okay, so what we're going to be working on today is creating our nighttime pumpkins. And this takes a few different steps. So what we're going to begin first today is we're going to start working on drawing our pumpkin, and then we're going to actually draw our leaves too on one of our large pieces of paper. So let's get started with that. The first thing that you're going to need is our large paper. And what I want you to do is make sure you put your teacher code on it. So K is the first one that you do. And then you put your teacher's first letter of their name. So if you're in Murray, it'd be KM. If you're in Paletti, it'd be KP. If you are in Newton, KN, or Davis, KD, and so forth. So after you put your teacher code, then I want you to write your name because they're all going to look a little the same. So make sure you put your teacher code and your name. Once you're done with that, what I'd like you to do is flip over your paper. And now what we're going to do is we're going to draw our pumpkin. And there's a lot of different ways to draw pumpkins, but one of the ways that I like to draw to help myself with the size of the paper is I'm going to do a dot and another dot below it. So now I've got a nice gap to help myself. And you could either draw an oval connecting it, or you can draw an oval slowly, where you do one side, and then you connect it the other way. So once you do that, then you're going to keep adding on those belly lines of your pumpkin. And we have a lot of paper to use. So you could keep going back to that dot and you could do another curve. And then on the other side you do the same thing. And you keep going. Keep making your pumpkin. Whatever's easiest on you. Right now it looks like a beach ball. And sometimes I don't want to go back to the dot. I might make mine a little bit wider. So I won't go as high, but I'll come back down. And that just gives it a little bit more character. So we keep adding a little bit more. I've got a really nice, fat, big pumpkin. Oh yeah, I like that pumpkin. And the nice thing about pumpkins is they're all not the same. Once you draw your pumpkin, the next step is you're going to draw a stem. And after you draw your stem, now let's talk about leaves. So next week, what we'll do is we're going to cut out our drawings. So, and then we'll glue them on. Right here, I cut out the pumpkin and I cut out my leaf shapes. And so it doesn't matter where you place them, but you can make a variety of different leaves. We did our other leaves before where we have, some of us did like a fatter W, and we did a dot, and from there we connected them, and it looks like an upside down heart. You could draw your lines and have your stem. So there's one type of leaf. Another type of leaf is you could do a U, very wide U, and the dot kind of helps me with how long I want it to be, and that's how it looks like a teardrop. And you could do a wavy line, you could do a straight line. So try to draw about 4 leaves and make them different sizes, some big, some small. Perfect. And once you are done with that in your black crayon, put your crayon away in the metal dish, and from there I would like you to go get a paint shirt.
For this next part, I'm going to be bringing paints into the room, but if you have watercolor paints at home, you can use those. If you are working remote from home, what you can use is even just crayons and blend with those, or use your markers. It's up to you. What I'm going to be putting out on the table will include the 3 primary colors of red, yellow, and blue, and how we're going to be mixing those together. So let's get started using what materials you have.
Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to start painting our pumpkin that we created, as well as painting our leaves. And what you'll notice is at your table, you're going to have a little palette to share with your classmates. And I have the yellow and red next to each other, and then I have a yellow and blue next to each other. So primary colors are the very first colors, and when you mix them, you create secondary colors. Yellow and red makes orange, yellow and blue makes green, and red and blue makes purple. Now you'll notice that my yellow up here and a little bit of my blue here are mixed a little bit, and that's okay. This was actually from a class before, so this is what I'm expecting at the end of class, to see that our palettes look nice and at least tidy, because we're not mixing on here. We're going to be mixing it on our paper, and that's usually what it's easier to mix on our paper for this. Some artists mix on the paper and some artists mix on a palette, but since all of us are using it, we're going to be mixing on our paper. Alright, so our pumpkin can be different types of shades. So shades could be it's a lighter color, and it could work its way to a darker color, and it's really nice. We're used to a different type of paint, but right now we're going to be using something that's called a tempera paint. So we're going to use our small brushes to cover and get into these detailed areas, and you'll notice my water is filled halfway. It's important that we always fill our water halfway, so that way when we're walking we're not spilling, and then when we're stirring and cleaning our brushes we're not spilling onto other people's projects. When you grab a dirty paintbrush, for example, this one's clean, but what I want to show you is you want to push your brush on the bottom of the cup, and you're going to swirl your brush around on the bottom, and that's what gets it nice and clean. When you're done swirling, we don't tap, we wipe, just like you would with soup. You're going to wipe it off on the inside, not the outside, because then you'll have drips everywhere, but on the inside. So those are my rules with this type of paint. What you're going to see me do is I'm going to grab some yellow, and I don't need to grab water for this brush. I'm going to grab some yellow, and let's not get it coated all over our paintbrush. And I'm just going to paint it in my area, noticing I'm staying within my lines. And I grabbed a good bit. So this is nice and yellow. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just ever so lightly, I'm going to take just a tiny bit of red, not a lot, and watch, I'm going to have my magic trick happen, where just that tiny bit of red going over the yellow makes it a nice dark orange. which is really neat, isn't it? So those two colors mixed and I have a nice orange. If you don't like that and you want it a little lighter in some areas, you can go in and grab some more yellow. And you can even work in just a little bit of areas. You can go, I just want a tiny bit more yellow here. And leave some of the other orange there, which is neat, right? So I'm going to grab, I wish I could have my palette on here nicer. Let's do it this way. I'm going to grab a little bit more of my yellow and I'm going to start painting it. I haven't rinsed my brush yet because we're all working on this together. Okay, and I'm going to do a tiny bit of red. Take my red over, and there's another little bit of my orange mix. So you can keep working until you get your whole pumpkin filled. If you feel like it's dry, just grab more paint. I know we're used to grabbing more water with our tempura cakes, but with this paint, it's already wet for us. So you just grab more paint. And if just keep playing with mixing it on your paper. You could even swirl a little bit if you want to get some texture, which is fun. So have fun with your paint techniques and just get your entire pumpkin filled. And there you go. I have my pumpkin nice and colored in. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to work on making green. So I'm going to rinse my brush really well, push down on the bottom, and it's going to take a little bit because this paint is not like the paint we're used to, so it takes a little bit to wipe off. And our palette should still look really nice where they're not very messy. But what we're going to be using now is the yellow that's next to the blue. So I'm going to take this particular yellow, and what I'm going to do now is paint it on top of my leaves. So here's some of my yellow. Grab a little bit more. You can work around and just do your leaves this way. Okay. Grab more yellow. Good. And then what you're going to do is play by taking a little bit of the blue, and you could paint all of it, you could paint a little bit of it, you can do some swirls or squiggles, and you can make the different shades of green, which is really cool. So you could have half a leaf be one color, and you could grab a little bit more blue and make the other side dark blue or dark greenish blue. So there's a lot of neat tricks. Just play with making your different shades of green. Okay, once you're done, what you'll do is you'll put your project on the dry rack and you'll work on some extra art at your table. As we continue with our project and doing our nighttime pumpkins, here is what we're going to be working on and doing today. So using your paper that you had painted on last week, and this is just an example of one, is we're going to start cutting out our leaves and our pumpkin. So when you go to cut, it's important that you hold it in the correct hand. So if you're a lefty, you'll hold it in your left hand by putting your thumb always on the top and then your fingers on the bottom. So you open and close, right? Or you can also use it in your right hand if you're a righty. So whichever way you feel most comfortable. I can do both for me, but here I'll use my right one for this one because that seems to be in most of us. So what you'll notice is I work in groups or around different things to help myself. What I'll do is I will cut around, and then I will take off some. So see how that just went to the bottom here? It just makes it easier on myself if I do it in smaller chunks. And now my hand is holding on one side and I turn the paper, not my scissors, but I'm turning the paper in order to help myself cut. Once you cut out your pumpkin and your leaves, then we'll be able to start gluing them down. So you can either have a black piece of paper if you have a black construction paper at home, or if you don't, you can just put it onto another piece of paper, leave it on the one that you have, and just color that background. So what we're going to do is I wanted to show you some things. You're going to glue first your pumpkin on your paper, anywhere you would like it, using a glue stick. And then what we're going to use is a green crayon. Typically I use a piece of chalk and our pastel chalks. And what's nice about those is you can smudge it. So if I had a white one, I can smudge it. If I draw a star, I could smudge it by making a little spiral circle, and it makes it come off on your finger a little bit. But for us, we're going to place your pumpkin on our paper. And then we're going to use and glue our leaves on the paper as well. So we have 4 leaves you could put anywhere you would like on your paper. And once you do that, I want you to go back in using, if you have a white crayon, I have extra crayons on me, and go in and do green for some fun vines, add in some of the white crayon on top of your paper to give it some shininess or stars in the background, and even on your leaves if you would like. So once we're done with that, we'll take a picture and we'll put it on Seesaw.